Welcome to Family Business Breakthroughs, where we bring you time saving, money making strategies to improve your business even more. With over 3 decades of experience serving multi generational family businesses, we've got time tested solutions to get the results you're looking for. Listen in and get ready for your next breakthrough. I am your host, Jim Berner, and last episode we talked about the 3 pillars of Meridian Method: vision, people, and money. And there are 3 components that make up these pillars. We started with vision and the first component, strategy. And now today we are discussing the second component of vision, which is structure. Again, I have with me Betsi Bixby, founder and owner of Meridian Associates. And Meridian has been a leader in supporting family business owners, next gens, their teams, achieving their goals of family legacy, growing community involvement, and thriving their companies forward. And Meridian does that through one on one coaching, on site strategic planning, live events, online education. Betsy, I don't think I've missed anything else there.
I'm
Uh,
like, wow, we're doing a lot over here, Jim.
but Betsy, you have over 30 years of experience supporting family businesses, and your insights come from rooted in real world practice, not academia. This isn't theory. We're doing this every single day. And I want to thank you again for joining me today. So, we're talking about structure, and that might mean different things to different people. So, why don't you first just tell us about what structure means to you and to this second component of vision?
Absolutely, Jim. It's funny because structure sounds like such a difficult word, but it's so simple because all it is how your people and processes are organized. So every family company has that, whether it's written down, not written down. I mean, they're doing it, right? There's a structure there. It's just whether it's the optimal structure or not is a whole nother
Exactly.
matter, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, in our previous episode, when we talked about strategy, uh, is this inherently like the next best step to kind of take? Is to look at the structure of a business?
Well, if you're going to be able to achieve your strategy, structure is vitally important.
Mm,
There are times when you're trying to achieve some growth, you're trying to achieve some different things that you've never had before. You've got exciting plans. And if you just stay stuck in your existing structure, it may not work. You may not get the achievement, or you have a structure that's going to make it really slow and really painful to get to where you want to go. That's not what you want. You want to accelerate, and you want people having fun and enjoying their jobs. So structure is a huge part of that.
so the significance of this, because we're talking about people, is is it really just having the right people, or is it really them understanding exactly what the business structure is, or what is really the significance behind then this fun aspect, this making to accelerate the business forward?
Yeah, so it starts even, Jim, in thinking about whether you have divisions or how you are structured
Mm,
right now. Do you have regions? Do you have product specific divisions? How exactly are you set up? And even small companies, you have some little pieces that you've put together as far as structure goes. When you start talking about roles and what people do, do you have an office manager? Do you have, an accounting department? Or, as some of our growing Empower customers have found, they start growing and they've kind of used this same structure, Jim, where
hmm
they had something that worked when they were pretty small, and they think, oh, well, we're going to go buy this other business over here and we'll just have the same structure, right? It's worked for us, in this town. We're going to go do it in this other town. And then you do that a few times, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I don't know if this is working really well, you know? And then, sometimes you get these people that are like, very proud of their particular, area, and they start fighting with other people. And that's all structure. That's all
Yeah.
about the business structure. It's pretty interesting.
So you mentioned our Empower clients. You mentioned Empower in general, which is the one-on-one coaching that we do, and then we have an elite program where we go on site. And you've been doing this now for a long time. But let's say you're working with a new business owner, and they say to you, "Gosh, Betsy, this is a great idea. We need to take a look at structure, or like you mentioned, we have structure, but maybe maybe it's not really there." From a 50,000-foot view, like, what is that process of, like, taking a look at a company's structure?
Yeah, it's really interesting because depending upon what kind of business cycle they're in, first generation, multi generation, how complex the business is, if you have a functioning business, which is mostly what Meridian works with, right, is these multi generational, pretty complex businesses with a lot of different things going on, different generations. One way to kind of know that maybe your structure needs some improvement is to say, where are the bottlenecks? Like, where's
Mm,
stuff being
mm,
being hung up? Where's the repetitiveness? You know, um, I've heard companies say, well, gosh, this one office, their receivables are really, really good, but over here, oh, they're horrible, right? And so then they're like, well, should we centralize everything? So centralizing versus decentralizing is a structure issue, right?
mhm,
And so, an interesting thing that happened for me was I was working with a company, gosh, and we've worked with them for probably, 25 of our 30 years, and they've grown incredibly. And once they got into this kind of multi state situation, they started questioning. And they're like, ooh, are we doing this right? And in just one area, which was their operations area, they realized by restructuring, and this is a crazy number, it was over $4 million in
mm.
savings through a
Wow.
restructure. And again, now these
Oh
guys
my
have grown
gosh.
into multi state and they've got a lot of different things going. But it was like they had just organically grown and they had just assumed that the structures that they were either acquiring or that they had were the right thing, but everything had changed. Software
Mm,
has now allowed us to do things differently, more expediently, all that stuff, and so they really had to take a hard look. So what we did there is interview and understand and look at bottlenecks and figure out what was being duplicated, and paper flows and all that stuff that makes everybody crazy, right? What was getting redone, if you were dispatching, for instance, how many
mhm,
hands did it go through, and you know pricing models. I mean, there's just a ton of things where you start looking at structure. And
mm,
when you were little, it worked great, but now that you're bigger, it's not quite so great. And typically what you find is people are kind of tripping over each other. And
mm.
you're seeing these emails go out and like 16 people are copied and you're getting 10 different answers and all that stuff. And three people are trying to do the same thing, all that stuff. That's all an indicator that your structure isn't working well and you've got to stop and take a look. And every family business is different, so there's not like this rule of thumb of here's what you do. One of the things I love about family businesses, it is so unique. It's
Mhm.
not a boilerplate, it's not a template. It is, you start from scratch of where they are and you figure it out and put it together. It's fun.
Yeah. And you mentioned there, smaller businesses growing up into bigger businesses, and that is what Meridian does. We work with all different types of businesses in general, but for those businesses that might be, let's say, smaller, and let's say maybe their structure isn't as maybe formalized together,
Oh yeah.
um, somebody like Meridian coming in to help with structure might not be the best for everybody. They have their own set ways, and maybe even sometimes family members do as well. So, have you ever? Let's just start there. Have you ever seen people kind of really provide a lot of pushback towards you when you maybe start going on site, or you start?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
So
Oh
then,
my gosh, yes.
so what is
Because
that conversation? I was going to say, what does that conversation look like then? You start moving in there, and You start saying, hey, look, we need to do these changes. People have been working there for 35, 40
Oh
years.
yeah.
And here comes somebody, in my territory doing this. Like, what does that conversation look like? And how does.
So it's always the same working with people, and I know we're going to get into our people piece in another podcast, but people support a world that they help create. So if you can show them that their life is easier, that their work is better, that they're going to have more fun when these
Mm,
things get solved, that's really the key to getting things done. But Jim, the typical thing I'll hear is, this is getting too corporate. Right? That's the
yeah.
word that
Yep.
they use, which is really funny. Yeah, it gets getting corporate, right? Because we start talking about who reports to who. And, in small family companies, and even owners will say this, well, we do everything here and everybody pitches in and has to help and do everything. Well, that's fine. And we love that kind of culture. But also, there needs to be accountabilities and there needs to be structure,
Hmm.
and people need to
Hmm.
know what they're supposed to be achieving, what the expectations are, and who they report to. And that's always a funny conversation to know when structure is a little bit screwed up, because you'll ask somebody, well, who do they report to? And they'll go, well, it's kind of this person and it's kind of that person and it's kind of this other guy over here. And then, there needs to be clarity, because where
Hmm.
there's clarity, that accelerates achieving goals. And
Hmm.
that's what our whole vision piece is about, is knowing, hey, we're at point A, we want to get to point B. What's the fastest and best way for us to get there? And so, in order to have that, you got to have a good structure.
Yeah. So, okay, so we talked about now little, maybe some smaller companies, which is great. Um, but now let's switch gears and let's talk about, because we work with some very large companies as well.
Yes, we do.
Sometimes, thousands of employees that are there. And so, uh, for an organization that is bigger who might think, I have this all figured out, my bottom line is great, I don't want anybody or need anybody coming in, they're listening to this right now. How should they measure effectiveness of their structure?
Effectiveness of the structure is really measured by, are you achieving the goals that you want in the time that you want with the degree of hassle you want? Right?
Hmm.
So in a really good system, the company that doesn't need us is the one that is achieving everything they want to achieve. They're doing it on time, on target, everybody's happy, and it's just smooth as a whistle. If you have that company, don't call Meridian, you know but if you just say to yourself ever, gosh, I wonder what it would be like if, or you're encountering, certain things that happen even though you're achieving your profits. Like, we've worked with a lot of super profitable companies that are just like, yeah, but it's a lot of hassle.
Hmm.
We just feel like, at the end of the day, we're kind of worn out. Those kind of companies are really fun to work with, because
Hmm.
they've got a lot of things right. They're successful in a lot of areas, but there's a lot of times when there's just these small structural tweaks that can be made that just open up new doors. I was just writing an article for the Energy Marketers Association. Been writing for them for years and years, and talked about the fact that, sometimes we are constrained by, maybe we don't have the talent in a certain area, and so we just don't even tackle a strategic vision, because we're like, oh shoot, we don't have the people or the technology to do that. And I want to encourage companies to have courage to
Hmm.
to actually, go get talent, go make some changes that are going to drive you forward. So, um, sometimes it just means bringing on uh, people that are talented in different areas. And I love when owners will say, I want to hire people that are smarter than me. That's what I did with you, Jim. That's it, right? You and
I
Ken and
appreciate.
lots of people on our company is like, I want people smarter than me at the table. I want to be the dumbest person in the room at Meridian. I want all of our team members to be absolutely stellar. So sometimes structure means taking a hard look at saying, where are the weaknesses, and let's get somebody stronger in there.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. We we had that phenomenal speaker that you got in touch with one year for one of our events, and she always talked about how she went into a room and she doesn't want to be the smartest person that's in there for
Right.
sure. Also, I'm writing down here too, making a note for another podcast episode of owners whose sparks have come back to joy really within their businesses, because you kind of mentioned that was like people who get
Mm.
tired and then they come back and then they're like, oh my gosh, this is, I love what I do now. So those
Yeah.
stories, though, you tell us those stories time and time again, which is really encouraging for all of us. But we're gonna have to do an episode just on that, which I think will be
Okay.
great.
I'm happy to
Um,
do it.
but since again we're talking about structure and the vision piece, I want to assume, I assume that when you developed this, you were thinking not just about the now, but also the future. So, how should a business owner think about the structure of their business for the future when we literally have no idea what could be happening?
You know, that's so funny, Jim, because none of us can really know what's happening, right? I mean, there's things outside of our control that are going to impact our businesses. And it's one of the things I love about working with multi generational businesses. They've seen that, it doesn't bother them.
Mhm.
But that shouldn't keep us from setting our course, right? It's like the pilot of an airplane, knows that he wants to land in New York or whatever. You better have those coordinates in. Now, if a thunderstorm comes, right, you're gonna fly around it, but you better know where you're going. So, what I suggest that owners do is think in a 5-year time frame. I used to ask them to think in 10, and sometimes that got just a little too crazy. Some people can think in 10, some can think in 100, whatever. But it's like at least go 5 years down the road. And then think about where you want your business to be in a 5-year time frame. And then ask yourself, what's the structure that would make that be optimal at that 5-year time frame? Doesn't mean you're going to do it right away, but it means that you have this vision of the structure that matches where you're trying to go. And then you just, as I said with strategy, you work it backwards, right? It's like, okay, this is where you want to be. All right, let's
Mhm.
back it down to 3 years. Let's back it down to 2 years. Let's back it down to
Mhm.
this year. If we're going to be here in 5 years and this is what it looks like, what do we need to do right now? And sometimes that's as simple as getting reporting structures and roles and responsibilities built in for people, and rethinking, is the way that we're sliced and diced right now, like maybe by products or regions or whatever that is. Just ask yourselves, is that the right thing when you think 5 years down the road? And
Gosh.
the stuff's going to happen, it just
Right.
is. And that's what I love about multi-generational family companies. They have endured through amazing stuff. Jim, you
Mhm.
remember when we had a guest speaker, and he talked about how in the family's early going, that their entire business model was regulated out of business, because they
Mm.
were they were in liquor business, right? They were in beer,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
beer got outlawed, you
Yeah.
know, and they had to take all their processes and all the things that they knew, and they started making ice cream instead of beer,
Yeah.
during the prohibition. Like, that's what I love about family companies. It's like,
Mhm.
I have this phrase, over, under, around, and through, which I stole from Michael Jordan, by the way. And so family companies are that way. Like, stuff is going to happen. We've been through
Mhm.
pandemics, we've been through wars, we've been through all sorts of stuff. And it's like, they figure out how to not only survive but thrive. And they've been keeping America great now since the beginning of America, and even
Mhm.
before. Family businesses are the backbone of this country, and
Mhm.
I'm just proud to serve them.
Mm. Resiliency. That is,
Mhm.
man, that is true. True as all could be. All right. So we've given a lot here. Let me just go over some really key points, and I'm sure people are going to go back here and revisit this. I'm going to encourage them to, but really having right people, roles and responsibilities, they need to understand their divisions. A great place to start, as you mentioned, where are the bottlenecks? where are the bottlenecks that are in your business already? I also want people to not assuming that their structure is right, which I think is key for having this outsider coming in. You did a great job of explaining that you need to involve all people because they support the world that they create, which I really want people to write down right now. Put that on a sticky note, put it in front of you, and then this idea of reverse engineering you mentioned here, 5 years out, and work your way backwards. I think people kind of get caught up sometimes in what I've heard with that as well, and you've kind of broken it down really well for people to kind of back it down. So that is really, really good. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
So I want to
welcome.
thank you. Yeah, thank you again for your time again today. Again, sharing super valuable insight. And I want to encourage people to go back again, pause, write your notes down, look at those certain points, start devising now this structure piece. Look at your strategy first, then get into your structure. And I want everybody listening today to message me your questions and comments. While we have Betsy here, and I can go run over to her office as well, I can get those questions and stuff answered for you. But as a reminder, Meridian is here to serve you and your family. If you are looking for succession planning, leadership, next gen coaching, maybe you need help on your structure, or want to attend one of our awesome events, check out the show description and the notes for links to our website on how we can help and support. Feel free to reach out with any questions or comments and hit that subscribe button to catch all the new content. Betsy, again, thank you so much for your time. And I want to appreciate everybody for listening in. And I will see you next time on Family Business Breakthroughs.
Thanks, Jim.